Okay, so what I think I was supposed to do was science and reading comprehension. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. I could not find the paper. But I will start off by doing the rock cycle. This is the book that I chose because it was science and comprehension. Hopefully, so I'll let you guys hear it first and then I will discuss everything else afterwards.
There are three main types of rocks on Earth: igneous rock, sedimentary rock, and metamorphic rock. Like the water cycle, the rock cycle does not have a beginning, but the first rocks on Earth appeared when the hot liquid lava that made up the entire surface of the forming Earth cooled. When wind and water weather and erode igneous rock, they become sediments. Sediments are small pieces of rock, minerals, plants, or animals. For example, sand is a sediment. Over time, sediments build into many layers. The top layers put immense pressure on the bottom layers. Compaction and cementation turn the sediment into sedimentary rock. Compaction is the process of individual sediments being squeezed together, and cementation is the process of dissolved minerals gluing the sediments into rock as water moves through the layers. Over millions of years, the movement of tectonic plates can force rocks from the surface of the Earth underground. If sedimentary rock or igneous rock gets buried deep under Earth's surface, the high temperatures and pressure turn them into metamorphic rock. Weathering and erosion, as well as the movement of tectonic plates, eventually bring metamorphic rock to the surface. Once at the surface, weathering can turn it into sediments that will someday become sedimentary rock. If any of the rocks are forced too deep underground, the heat from the mantle will melt them. We call melted rock magma when it is underground. When it reaches the surface, we call it lava. When the magma or lava cools, it becomes igneous rock. Through the rock cycle, any type of rock can become any other type of rock. A sedimentary rock deep underground can become a metamorphic rock that melts and then cools to become igneous rock. Some parts of this rock cycle happen quickly. In Hawaii, you can watch as lava flowing from a volcano cools into an igneous rock. However, most of the rock cycle is so unbelievably slow that we can't see it. Metamorphic rocks discovered in Greenland are 3.8 billion years old. The rocks that make up the continental crust are much older than the rocks that make up the oceanic crust. Continental crust is less dense than oceanic crust, so the dense ocean plates are forced under other plates into the mantle at subduction zones. New oceanic crust replaces the old crust at mid-ocean ridges, where magma from deep within the crust pushes into the ocean floor and cools it into igneous rock. Like the rocks of the oceanic crust, the rocks of the continental crust are moving between the three types of rock. They just do it much more slowly.
Okay. So I remember reading this book when I was about 5th grade, and that is the grade I did with this project. So I guess I'll talk about the book talk first. I mean, yeah. Okay, so the book I did, I said, was Rock Cycle by Kate O'Donnell. It's a nonfiction book, of course, and it's a children's literature and it's science. Um, the genre characteristics provides an explanation of ways in which you selected text fits these characteristics. So although this is nonfiction, I used candy to do an activity, and household tools could make it just a characteristic of the actual cycling process. But it's still the same thing, but I just use candy, so it's still a nonfiction, but it's fiction because it's not real. The text structure demands. I believe that the text was explained in detail what each part does for understanding of rock cycle. If you know the words. Um, Vocabulary demands were high, but they are 5th graders, so they have heard them. But I definitely defined some of the words for them so they could comprehend because we know that if you can't comprehend, reading doesn't mean anything. So it was reading comprehension, which they struggle with in this grade particularly. So some of the tier one words were like, rock, cycle, water. Some of the tier two words that I thought were like erode, minerals, underground, a little bit, and weathering. Tier three words: metamorphic, sedimentary, and igneous and compaction. The syntax demands of text. The arrangement of phrases for the purpose of learning order was present in this text for sure, but just like in fifth grade, it makes sense to me. I'm pretty sure it wasn't going to make sense to the kids that I did this for. This course demands of text. I was able to share my knowledge with them and show them how I know it and resources to support what I was telling them. I was able to let them see visual knowledge by reading the book. So, uh, I know. Attention getting book introduction was just a book. So they always like looking at that smart board. So that's just pretty much it. During reading questions and comments, um, they just was like, what are they talking about, Mrs. Henderson? They had puzzled faces. After the reading, we talked about it a little bit. They still kind of didn't know, but after the activity that we did, they were able to kind of grasp it just a little bit more because they have been working on Rock Cycle for quite a like about 2 or 3 weeks before I even did this, and they were not understanding it. So I had found this activity on Pinterest, and then I did it with the kids. So I didn't know that we had to do a work sample. Also, they did use candy, so unless I would have took a picture of it, it was nothing I can do to like take it. But I did attach the video right here and the YouTube for the book. I can show you the quick 30-second rock cycle. This is what I did with the kids. They made some rocks. They talking about weathering. What's next? Sediment. So compaction, put it together. That's sedimentary rock. Put it in a plastic bag, put it in the water, squish it together, igneous rock. Heat and pressure with some wax paper and an iron. Metamorphic rock. And the cycle continues and continues and continues. Okay. So this was a little harder for me to do because I really didn't understand it. I will attach my reference, but the purpose. So my purpose was to expand students' background knowledge so that it will improve their reading comprehension. We talked about the water cycle within the beginning of this lesson, and they were like, the water cycle doesn't have a beginning or end. And I was like, well, great. I'm glad that you guys know that because neither does a rock cycle. And that was kind of like a background knowledge of them using their science they learned before. Um, then there was the knowledge and of language and stuff. So procedure. Since my students are learning about rock cycle right now in class, I decided to read Rock Cycle by Kate O'Donnell. Um, I took questions and we talked about it. Maybe for about 10, 15 minutes longer than I definitely expected to talk about it. Then because I know it is easy but hard to understand, I did an activity. I had them pair up in groups of twos. I passed around a cup of water, three different color starbursts, a plastic baggie, and scissors. The last step, I had them come up to me with the iron and the wax paper because you just can't trust fifth graders. They would be able to remember this and use this knowledge to build their knowledge in the future. So since I was doing like the build on knowledge, that I know that knowledge kind of just keeps going. Uh, that is kind of why I did this because they're going to continue to learn about this, especially when they get to high school. Earth space, it's there. You're gonna have to learn this all over again. So I feel like this is like kind of a starting on trying to think back, like, hey, we did a starburst thing, and they kind of remember from that. The steps are right here. So I read the book. We asked questions. We talked and talked and talked. Um, I got them into groups. I passed out the materials. We created the rock cycle with materials, and then lastly, we went over it. So they were able to tell me more stuff this time than they were previously able to tell me when we did science with these last couple weeks. I'm not gonna lie, I definitely have troubles with the rock cycle as well as a fifth grader. So it wasn't unheard of. So the materials I used was a smart board, of course, starburst, iron, water, coffee maker for the water purposes, plastic baggie, scissors, wax paper, and the Rock Cycle book. So, okay, so my strategy instruction example, I didn't really understand this. So basically I just kind of put up there what I felt they learned afterwards. So to understand the rock cycle, you must first know what the words mean. So what I did was I wrote metamorphic, sedimentary, and igneous on the board, and I put the definition of what and what happened. So that way they can refer back, because if we can refer back and use our resources, it'll help us. Means so they knew how to get to one to the other, which you see this picture right here at the bottom. I attached it. Today we read the rock cycle and did a fun activity using candy, like I said. The book described what each part of the rock cycle was, and by the end of the activity, kids were able to explain at least some of it uh, in their own words. So that was great. So sedimentary rock, when you think of sedimentary rock, I asked them what comes to mind first, and then somebody yells out compaction. Like, I guess they just kind of remembered that word. It was like compaction. So I was like, great. And then how would you describe the word sedimentary in your own words? And it was like squished together, which is also great. So however you have to remember it, which is how I want you to remember it. Igneous rock step. So how did we get it? Igneous rocks? And they was like, when it melts, and I was like, what do you mean when it melts? And they was like, they said something about crystallization and materials melt. Great. That means you were listening. So that's awesome that you obtained that. Does the rock cycle have a particular order, like a starting place? And they said no, again, just like the water cycle doesn't. And that was that prior knowledge they were using. Um, so it was, as I learned, it was two different topics, but it was related to each other, and they were able to remember that. Metamorphic rock, step 3, what happens in the metamorphic stage? And they said a lot of heat and pressure, just like the iron that was used with the starburst. And I love that they used that, the activity that we used to describe that, because that means you're paying attention and you have fun, and now you're going to remember that kind of stuff, since we are building our knowledge up. So this is the rock cycle right here. The kiddish version that I could find. Sedimentary rock. So some of the sample student responses that was written on the smart board or the whiteboard was compaction. They really like that one. Ball it up in your hands. That works for me. Squish it together. So igneous rock, it was melt, get hot in the water, and it gets soft. However you got to remember it. Melt like a s'more. That's how you feel. Go right ahead. So metamorphic rock, it got that pressure. These are kids. Smash it down with the iron. A lot of heat and pressure. So I really feel like the lesson that I did with the activity and what I needed them to know kind of worked for not only them, but me as well. And I feel like I accomplished them learning something for this activity. All right. Thank you.